Representative Randy Forbes in Virginia Beach, he is certainly in favor of this National Day of Prayer, wants to see it continue. And also Annie Gaylor, who's president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation in Madison, Wisconsin. To both of you, thank you so much for being here. It's something that a lot of people are interested in and fascinated by, so thank you both for being here. Representative, I want to start with you by the simple fact, should the government be encouraging people to pray?
Well, let me tell you how absurd this ruling was. I've been watching your stories today and focused on Mississippi because my son, my granddaughter, and my daughter-in-law live in Mississippi, and you were focused on a church there and the fact about trying to give the people their hope. Imagine how foolish it would be if Governor Barber came out today, or the Mississippi State Legislature, and simply asked people to be encouraged and to think about and consider praying for the people in Mississippi, and some judge came in and declared what they did to be unconstitutional.
Well,
and
sir,
yet that's essentially what's happened.
And Ms. Gaylor, I want to give you a chance to respond to some of the things. I know you were itching to get in there, but some of the things Representative was saying about how frankly absurd this is to try to keep the federal government or keep a member of the government from encouraging people to say a prayer.
Well, I'd like to correct the record. Many people came to this nation. We founded this nation in part by people who wanted to get away from religious tyranny in government, from their government telling them what religious ritual they had to engage in, what church they had to go to, who they had to tithe to. And it's a fundamental principle that we have freedom of conscience in this country, and that has been deeply abrogated by Congress in passing a National Day of Prayer, ordering the President to issue a proclamation which enjoins all Americans to set aside an entire day to pray, to gather together in groups and in churches to pray. And what about those of us who are not religious? Well, it's totally against freedom of conscience. We aren't opposing a National Day of Prayer for clergy, we're calling it. It's unconstitutional for the President and for Congress to set aside a day for prayer.
Well, on that point, the law specifically says that people may turn to God in prayer and meditation, and it says at churches, in groups, and as individuals. So it doesn't necessarily say, hey, people, everybody, you got to pray to God, you got to go to church. So it's a little vague. You see, is there a little wiggle room, if you will, in that law?
Because it's a mandated National Day of Prayer, every single president has issued a proclamation urging all Americans to pray. And in fact, every proclamation has told us what to pray about, which I think shows a lot of temerity. There are many people who are religious who understand that it's beyond the purview of government to tell them to pray or what to pray about.
Well, Representative, I'm sorry there, forgive me for interjecting here, but Representative, do you agree to some degree there, but the law mandates that the President shall designate a day of prayer, but he doesn't have to designate that you have to pray. It's not necessarily, would you agree, Representative, that it's making everybody pray?
That's exactly right. In fact, if you look, Ms. Gaylor has even tried to stop the Pledge of Allegiance from the flag from being in the National Visitor Center because it contained the word God. She thought that was offensive. One of the things you're absolutely correct on is this is something that says may. And the founders of the Constitution and founders of our country realized that the First Amendment was never designed to be a brake or a restrictor on ideas going into the marketplace of ideas, but rather a throttle. And we believe truly that in the marketplace of ideas, truth will win out. But Mrs. Gaylor wants to do is put a no trespassing sign when it comes to faith and religion and keep those ideas out. We just think that's wrong.
Well, Ms. Gaylor, I'll let you respond there. A direct accusation that what you want to do is keep a no trespassing sign. It's kind of the way he said it. I'll let you respond.
Well, government should not be in the business of religion. That is supposed to be up to individuals and churches. What the judge said was that if you can have a National Day of Prayer, well, you could also have a national day where you could set aside a month to fast for Ramadan. Or you could tell citizens that they have to go to an Indian sweat lodge or they have to engage in rune magic. This is beyond the scope of government. It's an intrusion into individual conscience, and everyone should object to it. Everyone can pray privately or have private prayer days, but the government should not be calling one. We are not a theocracy, and we were predicated on a separation between religion and government, and that has made sure that we all have religious liberty.
Well, Ms. Gaylor, is there an issue as well? And I know it's not law, but the President had a dinner recognizing Ramadan. He's had a couple of seders at the White House as well, and I know those don't go as far as establishing federal law, but are you as uncomfortable with the president making those moves as well? He's still establishing and also recognizing certain religion.
The difference is that the National Day of Prayer law is calling upon citizens to take action. It's setting aside an entire day and telling citizens that you are to observe a National Day of Prayer. And every proclamation has said that all Americans are to unite in prayer. That's the difference.
Well, Representative, on that issue at least, and again, I know, again, on the law for people not that familiar with it, it does say may turn to God in prayer. It doesn't require people to pray, but Representative, at the same time, this is a law that serves, as some religious or constitutional scholars would say, serves no other purpose but to encourage people to engage in a religious exercise. That's it, and that's something that the judge who issued this ruling said as well. So should the government be in the business of doing that? There's no other purpose of this law but to encourage people to engage in a religious exercise.
Well, first of all, that's what the judge says, but I think one of the things that's very important to recognize is that when you have a day like this, it also encourages people to go back to the Declaration of Independence, to appreciate our rights. Remember, in the Declaration of Independence, we're told that our rights actually came from the Creator, from God. If you look at the interpretation of this judge, she would declare that document to be unconstitutional were it written today. The other thing I would just suggest,
That's
if you go on Ms. Gaylor's, if you go on her website, she says specifically that one of their purposes is to educate people in the non-existence of God. She has the right to do that and compete in the marketplace of ideas. She just shouldn't exclude people of faith and religion from also competing in that marketplace of ideas. She's had generations to argue that. She's just lost her argument.
Ms. Gaylor, I got to go, but again, you have the right to respond to what he just said.
Well, many Americans, 15% of Americans are non-religious, and we are Americans too. We are made political outsiders when this law is passed telling us that we have to observe a National Day of Prayer. Just keep religion and government separate. Religion and prayer flourishes in our country. There's no country where we have greater religious liberty, but we are very concerned about the religious encroachments in our laws and government, and that's where we want the separation.
Well, Representative Forbes and Annie Gaylor, I appreciate you both being here. It's certainly something that taps into so much in our community, religious and non-religious. But thank you both for being here and for the debate, and you all enjoy the rest of your weekend.